Bam, bam, and we're live.
Hello there.
Love it. Brilliant. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We are here today to talk about Doctor Who. Lily's not here because she's busy being brilliant on the stage, and also, but more importantly, it is her birthday today. So if you are listening to this, you should go make sure you listen. Or today at least anyway, you should go wish Lily a happy birthday. Very important. Happy birthday, Lily. I love you.
Happy birthday, Lily.
But yes, we've got lovely Brian back with us this week
Oh.
to talk to me about Doctor Who because I've been very
Woo!
excited about this for so long.
ALLONS-Y. I'm so
um,
excited. It's
Alonzi Alonso.
when they announced that he was going to be the 14th Doctor. I mean, there was that rumor going around, those leaks that happened like 2 years ago, talking about it, something like that. I remember reading about it, and I was like, that's not going to happen. They've already done it with the 50th. He came back with Matt Smith, and then they actually did it. And I mean, yeah, it's just been really fun to watch.
It's been so lovely, and we're going to go straight into our review just as soon as I do the introduction to the podcast, which I almost forgot about. So, hello everybody, welcome to all the films we judged before. I'm Katie. That's not Lily. That's Brian. That's
I am
lovely Brian
Brian.
Pater. And now that's out of the way, let's get into Doctor Who. We got a bit of a hard out today, so we're going to get straight into things, and say, well, I think the first most important thing, overall thoughts. What did you think of these three lovely specials?
I loved it. It was interesting because I felt like I wanted them to be longer.
I,
So
I know what you mean, yeah.
yeah, and it just I loved them. I loved what they were doing. I loved the arcs and how they brought all the characters back together and how they introduced new characters. I felt like it was all so much
Mm.
that I felt like there could have been like maybe two more episodes that kind of would have elongated it or
I
something.
almost would have been okay with them being hour and a half long episodes.
That's what I wanted. I
Yeah,
was hoping it was a special. I was hoping they'd be an hour and a half, but being about what 50 minutes, 45 minutes each
they are an
was
hour actually.
are
They
they
all they,
actually?
they were an
Okay.
hour each, but I felt like at least particularly the last episode I could have done with being longer.
Yeah,
Which is like one of the most minor criticisms I have over the course of the entire thing because I also was just so happy. I don't know about you. I've been keeping up with Doctor Who all these years, despite the fact that I felt there has been a dip in quality.
yeah, me
Um,
too.
uh, as much as it pains me to say it, because they've had so many wonderful people in the show, but like just some of the I don't know, some of the writing has not been the level that I wanted it to be for
Okay.
the short over the years, which I always feel like didn't service, particularly Peter Capaldi and Jodie Whittaker. I felt like their runs did not service just how brilliant they are as actors. Um,
I agree. Yeah, I was very disappointed because I love Jodie Whittaker. If anyone's seen Broadchurch,
of
she's
course,
unbelievable
she's
in
so
that.
good in it.
Peter Capaldi, is essentially a national treasure in the UK, and he's become kind of international. And he had a lot of good moments and some good episodes, but overall, it felt like it was just both of their arcs as doctors just felt very meandery,
Yes,
which was which wasn't fair to them as actors and what
no,
they.
and it's like they both got like moments of like to shine because Peter shines in everything that he does. I've loved Peter for a really long time. He's in one of my favorite shows of all time. It's called The Hour. Not very many
Oh
people know about
yes,
it. You know The
yeah,
Hour? Oh my
I
gosh!
haven't seen it, but I know of it. My friend
Oh,
watches it or
oh,
has seen
it's one of those ones that I got about like so many people into because I would not shut up about it when it came out, and I'm still really mad that they cancelled it after the second series. It's been 10 years and I'm still upset about this. Um,
I'm still upset that Penny Dreadful was canceled and no one knows about the show, so I can relate very much so.
Yeah, the Hour was a brilliant little drama on BBC Two about a news show in the 50s. It had Ben Whishaw and Romola Garai, and
Mm,
Peter Capaldi came in the second season. Well, I believe was nominated for a BAFTA for his performance in it because he was, brilliant.
yeah,
Really fit into that show perfectly, and was exceptional. But yeah, I just considering I can still remember everything from the beginning of 9 up into the end of 10 with like absolute clarity and a bit
mm,
of like most of series 5 with the first Matt Smith's first series, like really they all stand out quite a bit.
Yeah.
I don't really remember like 90% of what happened in Peter's era. Um, I know people herald Heaven Sent as one of the best episodes of Doctor Who of all time. I've only seen
I
it once, and I don't remember it affecting me that much.
that one is actually when I think about Peter Capaldi's time as
Yeah.
the Doctor, the one episode I think of is Heaven Sent. Only because it was so artistically done. The
Mm,
cinematography was different. It was much more minimal,
yeah.
uh, and I think it gave him a good platform to shine as the actor that he is.
I can
And it was
remember him being very good in it. I just don't remember the content of the episode well enough to be able to be like, oh, I remember this, like, why this was, like, really, really good in X, Y, and Z. I just need to watch it again, is the thing. Because, like,
yeah,
the way that the internet talks about it, I'm like, I don't remember it in the same way that everybody else seems to.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I need to go back and give it another go. Begging your pardon. But yes, these specials definitely feel to me like a much needed return to form. Um, it's
Mm.
not like, and I think it's a return to form in the way that I kind of wasn't expecting. In that it was like, I've been talking for ages about like how much I wanted Doctor Who to be good again. But
Yeah.
what this did was it made it good in the same way that it was good in back in 2005, in that it's so
Yeah.
campy.
Yeah, 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 and I think someone said, they were expecting like each episode would be this like big, Doctor Who celebration, but in actuality, what it was it was just a return to when they're this is what they said, good Doctor Who, and it was just two, then plus like a bigger episode, but two episodes are much more casual, much more like being back in like 2008 with Donna and
Yeah.
the 10th Doctor and the family and everything like that, and then Wilf
Oh,
and Wild Blue Yonder, which
lovely
made me too.
Bernard.
I know, yeah. I think that was interesting. Was like you get that campiness because I think with Moffat's era, and I didn't watch a lot of Chibnall only because like the writing didn't speak to me.
Mm.
It became a lot more serious, and you still had some camp with like
Yeah.
11, but and a little bit like with the the guitar and like the sonic glasses
Yeah.
with. But I think it became there's a whimsical nature that Russell T Davies brings to Doctor Who
Mm.
that's really difficult to replicate and to replace in my mind.
I think the thing of it is, and it's a thing that is an issue with a lot of media nowadays, is that um, Moffat's era, whilst being very silly at points, wasn't in like it didn't feel like it was built to be silly. It was just
Yeah,
it just kind of came out silly. So it
happened to be.
didn't or it did that sort of self-referential thing where it's like, oh look what we're doing, wink kind of a thing. Whereas Russell's stuff is so silly but it's like so sincere at the same time. It like everything that happens in it is just like utterly ridiculous, but at the same time it's like, well, we all know this is ridiculous and it wants to be ridiculous and we are all enjoying the ridiculous nature of it. um
It's so earnest, isn't it?
it's so earnest, and I think that's so needed, and it's one of the things I've always loved about Doctor Who is that kind of earnest nature. um and the fact that the people in it feel like people,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
not just a strange amalgamation of a bunch of personality types that get shoved into the shape of a woman. Um,
AKA the kind of the Sherlock effect, where like everyone's
very
just
much.
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately,
um, yeah,
yeah,
no, it's a whole thing. But I was so pleased with all of these episodes. Like I said, I do think that that third episode could have been longer because I felt like the threat kind of got taken out of it a little bit for me.
yeah,
I would there was kind of more that I wanted from it a little bit, but it's also very difficult for me to be able to judge these like um, critically because
mm,
it's so much of a thing of like, oh, I want this I need for my child self. Like there's a 7-year old in me that just needed this, you know.
no, I completely agree. And like I think what they what was interesting, and to kind of get more into like the meat and potatoes of like the episodes and the contents of it.
Yeah,
Um, I liked that it wasn't just 10, the 10th Doctor again. That
yeah,
uh, David Tennant was playing 14 with all the experiences of 11, 12, and 13 leading
yeah,
up to it. He's more mature. He doesn't have that kind of like what people called arrogance, but like that kind of like confidence, braggadocious kind of nature that
yeah,
10 had at times, where everything would just roll off his shoulders and no matter what, and kind of the higher than thou
yeah,
mentality. He was very grounded, and what I think that did was it I don't know, it centered the piece in a different kind of way than I expected.
Yeah.
Um, because like what I thought of when you said, going back to like, your 7-year-old child self again. Uh, I always think of the last episode of I Don't Want to Go in End of Time Part 2,
Yeah.
where, it's heartbreaking and it is a death of that version of the Doctor. He's so attached to who he is and all the companions that he had. He doesn't want to lose those experiences and those feelings, and so it
Mm.
does feel like a loss. And he's so alone. He dies alone. That version
Yeah.
does. He generates alone. And this one he didn't. And everyone online was like, "Oh, I really want him to say I'm ready to go" or something like that, which would be a bit on the nose. Honestly, it would have been kind of nice,
Yeah.
but
I will talk about a little bit more about actually how they did it, because I think Russell's brilliant for actually the way he did it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
Not just in
yeah,
like what ended up happening, but like the actual thing he says just before he regenerates
yes,
is
yes, yeah.
genius, and I'm mad at myself that I didn't think of it.
It's the same thing, isn't it? Can we talk about it really
I
fast, or should
think
we?
I think we'll wait until we get into the third episode. 'Cause
Jumping into yeah,
I think we should make our way through sequentially. But like, yeah, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen these
yeah.
episodes at this point. Although why you wouldn't have is ridiculous to me, because if you're at least in the UK, you should have been watching them on Saturday nights, as is right and proper. The only one I missed on Saturday was the last one, because I went out to my hometown, and then I ended up in a pub with my family in the middle of nowhere, no signal, which was honestly a blessing, because it meant I couldn't check the internet whilst the episode was going,
Yeah.
and then I had to sit in the car for an hour and a half, just like, don't look at the internet, don't look at the internet, don't look at the internet. And then I had like 2 or 3 people message me, be like, "It's really good." And I'm like, Shh, stop saying
You're
things.
like, don't tell me if it's good. That's a spoiler in itself.
Tell me nothing. Like, shush, shush,
Really?
nothing, shush. um, but yeah, well, we'll start
Yeah,
at the beginning, which is the Star Beast, which
yeah.
Russell himself described as a very family-friendly, fun, kids movie kind of style thing, which is very apt. It is just so silly.
It is, and I'm really glad that he prefaced it. I remember seeing that interview where he said each one has a different tone. The first one's like a kid's like fun for the whole family type of film or a show episode. The second one's more of a horror film, a
Mm.
la like The Thing, and then the third one's more of like an action movie. And I
Yeah,
really like it. Kind of helped set my mind going into it because I
yeah,
think if I just gone into the Star Beast being like, oh, it's gonna be more intense, like kind of like how like the series has been going, it would have been a really weird, uh, I don't know, like antithesis to what I expected.
right.
Um, so I think he set the scene really well. Do you want to take away? Should we synopsize
I don't
this
think
or?
we need to synopsize it, because I feel like as most people, hopefully people at this point, they would have seen it, so they know what happened within it. But like, we could talk about specific little bits and pieces. Um, it starts very quickly with it. Just, I mean, the first thing that may have been a bit weird, but like honestly, I can forgive it, was that recap of everything that happened with Tennant and Donna in just like the void.
I know he's just standing, and then like, I don't know if you've seen Eraserhead, but there's a bunch of memes where like David Tennant with his hair up, and
Yeah.
like because his hair doesn't look anything like that for the rest of the series, but like they did something
It's such
weird.
an odd camera angle. It's
Oh,
like, and a weird lens to use, because it makes his face look really kind of like rounded, and it's like, why
yeah,
have you done
yeah.
this to him? He's so beautiful looking.
Oh,
It's
it
just like,
was it was really weird, and then he just then you have Donna sitting like looking at the camera, which makes sense. That's fine,
mm.
It's like a internal monologue, but he's just like float like he couldn't be in the TARDIS. He's just floating in space. Like it was just so odd. Um,
I
but
mean,
we,
a necessary recap for some people who probably haven't seen the show in about 15 years.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
But like, just very silly done. But like, again, I can forgive it, because it's done with this a sense of earnestness of like, we're going to tell you all this stuff now, and also this is how we're doing it, and you're going to go, okay,
Okay, here we go.
sure, why not? And then we go straight into it with him immediately bumping into Donna. There is no time to waste, in a very funny way. I love that whole thing with him taking the boxes off and seeing her and then
Yeah,
immediately putting the boxes back on.
just,
Um,
you know,
his face when she starts calling out for Rose, both
what?
was heartbreaking and also hilarious.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like, oh no, this is bringing up too many feelings now. Um, but yeah, the whole thing was just like, I mean, it really is just a campy joyride,
Yeah.
more than anything else. It just played to that sense of like fun and yeah, very much family. I love Rose. She's amazing and
Yeah,
gets to
I do
be
too.
like a proper, and I think everything that Russell did in that episode to like really push like hey, here's the things that kind of get covered in the three in the three specials. The Doctor is trans, canonically. He's at least slightly bisexual, canonically, and
Yeah,
now
yeah,
he's
so
officially
hot.
black.
Yeah, yeah, I love that part with the in Wild Blue Honey where she's like, "Oh, Isaac Newton was hot." He's like, "So hot." He's like, "Oh, is that who I am now?"
It's
It's
like,
great.
buddy, that's who you've been the whole time, but we don't need to talk about that. But yeah, no, it's just the fun of it all. I love, yeah, so much of it. What I love is this feeling immediately that the 14 is a different person to 10, like you said, because
Yeah,
he doesn't have the ego, right? I think, which I think is a
that's
really important thing.
said that
Um,
really well. I was searching for the word, but you're right. The ego isn't there. He didn't respond in ways that I thought he would. Like when,
he's very
um,
soulful, which is
yeah,
lovely.
he's very soft. I was surprised with like there's a moment when who's Donna's husband? What's his name again? The
Sean,
character? Sean. Thank you. I should know that. I know like all the other characters. Just Sean didn't have that much
Sean
time.
Temple, yeah, lovely
Sean,
Sean,
yeah.
who is just the
Uh,
best husband ever. Like immediately up for everything. It's just sort of like, what's happening here?
so what's for dinner? What's on?
Something smells nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When he's picking up 14 and they're
Mm,
going in the car,
mm.
and he's like how they gave away like the 100 was it 160 million pounds, something like that.
Yeah,
And 14, I would imagine 10 would be like, oh, that's my brilliant Donna. Like, oh, she's so lovely and doing like good things for people.
yeah.
But the way that he responded was like she gave it away. Like it was just a different response. Like, why
It
would
was,
she do
yeah,
that?
like a knowing sort of like, that's odd. Why would she do
Yeah,
that? And like
yeah,
kind of like really like kind of investigating that kind of a thing. I'd love that whole interaction about like how he's like, oh, I know Neris. She's
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
She's not fine. She's been fined.
Yeah, she's not fine.
Just like a classic Russell dialogue with like the way that David knows how to like just perform that sort of thing. Um,
Yeah.
Related side note, I was very lucky. I got to see David do Macbeth on Monday,
Oh,
completely out
oh,
of the blue.
I was
Somebody was
blinded up.
able to nab me a ticket, very
Oh,
kind. And it was like same day. It's like, are you able to go this evening? I was like, I don't have the money, and they went, oh, well, you could just pay me back later. And I was like, what the fuck? Okay, I'll go see David Tennant Macbeth. It was incredible,
yeah, I bet it.
incredible. This entire episode is just going to be me talking about how amazing an actor David Tennant is because he just is phenomenal in everything.
Yeah, he is. He's an incredible actor. I was really trying to see that show when I was in London recently. Just couldn't get and then by the time I left, it was just too late. But
It was
I
really
gotta say, I'm
difficult.
envious that you got to see it.
I'm
So it
I'm
was,
still kind of in shock that I was able to go because it is just insane. Because I really had like gone. I'm just probably not going to be able to see it. I'll try, but I probably won't be able to. But like,
and
shout out to
I
my
am
friend
happy
Rain
for
who
you.
was very kind and just like made it into a game for herself. Just be like, I'm just checking. I found one. Do you want it? And I'm like, yes, please.
What a good
um,
friend. Well, I'm happy. So it was amazing.
it
I'm
was
glad you had.
incredible thing. I obviously don't want to take up too much time because we only have so
Yeah, yeah,
much,
yeah.
but like, yeah, just like a whole thing. The headphones and the binaural like audio that they used was so just great. Also for me and my ability to process audio, because it meant that I just had everybody in my ears all the time, so it was really clear. But it meant that when
Yeah.
David was like doing soliloquies, he would whisper them, and you could hear
Oh,
them
it's
really
brilliant.
quickly, like he's gone off to the side and is like, I need to like just get this out for a second. Ah, so good. The whole thing was brilliant. If
Good,
you
good.
can,
Yeah.
people who might be watching, get a ticket to it. It might be difficult because technically it's sold out, but they are releasing tickets like daily and weekly, I think. So keep an eye on it. So if you can manage to get a ticket, highly recommend it because it is amazing. But back to the episode. Yes.
Yeah.
I love just everything about him being kind of like more not necessarily withdrawn, but like calmer and like more like emotional.
More
And
internalized in some
yeah, a little
ways.
bit more introspective. Clearly, been through a lot, which becomes like a very huge theme throughout the entirety of these episodes, where it's just like you've been through a lot. You need to take a break.
You need to go to
um,
rehab, some TLC, essentially. Yeah.
Go sit by the sea and like, take a break. Get that
Yeah.
sea air in your lungs, kind of a vibe. Um, but it meant that we got like so the episode was based off a comic strip that was released in the 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched any of the behind the scenes episodes that they did with
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah.
just again highly recommend if people have access to BBC iPlayer going to watch the episodes of Doctor Who Unleashed because David Tennant bounding up to the guys who made and being like genuinely so excited to talk to them. Sweetest thing I've ever seen in my life.
You should see the fan because I mean, he talks about in interviews that
Mm,
a big part of why he became an actor was because of Doctor Who
yeah,
originally. So to him, that's meeting one of the originators of what he loves, and so
yeah.
it's such a lovely thing to see that,
It's just
yeah.
yeah, so very sweet. I think the huge things in this episode were it's like discussion of gender really,
Mm.
they did not shy away from the fact that they cast a trans actress to play a trans character. Really kind of made that a huge, and it was a bit like I think anybody who has been kind of involved in the queer community for even a little bit knows that it was a bit heavy-handed. Like it was a
Mm.
little bit over the top in some of the things that it was going for. Like the sort of binary non-binary stuff at the end was like, I
Right.
get it, it's a bit much, but also this country is so heavily kind of I think the word to use would be infected with a sense of like you know bigoted like opinions on the nature of trans people. It's become like such a big thing. Tories are using it as a platform to be like, we're going to eradicate these people, sort of a thing. Over, yeah, it's not good. And so to have somebody go, actually, here is our trans character. She's amazing. She's like just 50 Shades of Brilliant. You're all ridiculous for not like appreciating her for who she is, sort of a thing.
And what's so cool, she gets a moment of being the Dr. Rose as
Yeah,
well. Obviously we're just jumping out of order, but I
that's
really
fine.
love that. Okay, cool. I really love that that concept of transferring
Mm,
that energy from Donna into Rose. I thought that was brilliant, and it has everyone shine in that moment.
hmm
And it was a really cool in-universe explanation to how Donna didn't die from,
I think
that whole.
and it makes so much sense. I think as well, just like logically when you follow it through. And I think what actually one of the things I love about all three of these episodes is that Russell has things where he goes, I think this makes sense, and he'll put it into the episode. But he also doesn't put too much emphasis on like the really specific nitty gritty bits of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, if something, and I think this is the huge thing that like a lot of Doctor Who didn't get very very right for a long time, is that like, does it make emotional sense? Yes. If it does,
Mm,
even if it doesn't make like literal sense, if it makes like if it feels like emotionally correct, you can kind of forgive anything really.
yeah.
And I think that whole thing made was very much correct because I think we all knew because she was going to be there for two more episodes, she'd have to get her memories back. So it kind of became a thing of like when exactly how exactly is that going to happen. That whole scene in the when he basically he like activated her like the Winter Soldier, which
Yeah.
really cracked me up.
Yeah, when he said tomato, I was like, "What?" I was like, "Is this?" Because it was never explained oh God, I can't remember the episode when that happened when he wiped her memory in the original
Journey's End
series. Journey's End, thank you. Back in season was that
4.
series 5, 4? Oh, thank you. Okay, you're on it. Thank you.
See, this is the era Doctor Who I know like the back of my hand is the thing.
Okay, I'm not good with numbers, but I'm good with like moments.
Mm,
Because I remember she goes through her thing and she says binary, 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 and
yeah.
she says what's happening. But it was interesting. Like I kind of figured that he was doing some sort of like code waking up, like kind of when you're a soldier. But I was like,
Yeah.
where's this coming from? Like when did he implant this in
Again,
her?
it's just everything about it. I mean, he put that moment is played with such beauty. The way that like he is just so defeated about the fact that he's like managed to keep us safe for so long, and Donna still being Donna is like, I don't care what happens to me. I need to protect my child and my husband and everybody else. Because
Yeah.
Donna's still the same person, even if she, has been, doing other things since then. So
Mm.
that yeah, I love how tactile this Doctor is. He's so touchy and very
Yeah.
affectionate, which just makes me very very happy. But yeah, the whole thing is it was very silly, and the meep is just ridiculous.
Interesting casting for the actor too, who
Love
played
Miriam
them.
Margolyes.
Oh, brilliant! And it just I know that she's known for being very vulgar, like on stage,
Oh
for a while.
yeah.
And so I was just like, I wonder if there's like a take where there's
Oh,
stuff
I'm
where they had to
sure
cut
there's
out
somewhere where she just like let loose like a string of expletives.
when she just went for it. Yeah.
Which is
Um, but then I'm trying to think of the ending. I love that when he sees the TARDIS being rebuilt.
mm.
Um,
Oh yeah, he gets the
Uh,
zoomies. That's so
yeah,
fun.
and he runs around, and that was David Tennant's idea. I remember watching that in the extras behind the
Yeah.
scenes. It was also a brilliant way of showcasing the new interior of the TARDIS and how vast it is.
Yeah.
And I love that moment, which comes into play later on in the third episode, where she says, "Why don't you just, come back and be with friends?
Mm.
Like this time we have a second chance. You could be with us." And he says, "Yeah, okay, maybe."
Yeah.
That was nice foreshadowing. And then I just love the part that it's such Russell T Davies humor where it's so slapstick, where she's like, "Oh, nothing could go wrong. Oh, I did it again," with spilling the coffee on the
Coffee.
monitor. Just
Yeah.
immediately, it was so. I love how it's just like just we need to get this character from one place to the other. So
It's like
let's
we're
just
just gonna do a thing. Trust us, it'll be
yeah,
fun. And
yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
in my head, because people are just like, I can't believe the TARDIS would react so like viciously to a cup of coffee. I'm like, she did that on purpose. And I'm talking about the TARDIS did that on purpose. She was like, these
Yeah.
two need to like hang out for a while. And also, I like to follow. I'm gonna throw a little bitch fit for fun. So just like explode. It's just like it's fine. I'll take you where you need to go, but I'm just gonna throw a little hissy fit in the meantime. Like she did that on purpose, like for sure.
I love how that goes into Wild Blue Yonder, where he says, "Oh, it was new, it was brand new."
Yeah, let's transition because I think yeah, I love the Starbeast. I think I can't tell. I don't know if least favorite feels like too much of like a thing to say because I did genuinely love all three of them. But like if I were to rank them, I think this one would probably be like at the bottom for now. Um, but like that really does not speak to like anything. It's just like it's a romp, and everybody like it was a perfect way to kind of bring us back into the series
Yeah.
for sure. But then we get into Wild Blue Yonder, and I have been so excited to talk about this specifically because they were so quiet about what this episode was going to be about.
Yeah. It's
They were
interesting.
like, we are not going to tell you anything, and it meant that people on Twitter who don't understand how these things work um, went a bit off the rails and thought this was going to be like an absolutely cameo filled episode with like Matt Smith returning and like all of these different things. And I'm like, no, it's just going to be weird, you guys. I don't know where you're getting all this stuff from. It's just going to be kind of weird. Um,
Just hope, probably hope and
it's just
wishing.
like that kind of sense of unbridled optimism, which just like had absolutely no basis. Which I'm like, bless you guys, but that's not what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. But so I think I mentioned it when we last spoke, but Midnight is an episode that I is probably one of the only times I can remember as a kid getting like genuinely frightened by Doctor Who. I watched it again recently. It is a brilliant episode. I think
Yeah.
it is like genuinely perfect horror.
I just rewatched it about a week ago just because when I think about especially his time, David Tennant's time as the Doctor, the main time when he was 10, I think of Midnight, I think of Silence in the Library, and I think of End of Time
Yeah.
predominantly. I want to go back, and Midnight is it's just such, like you were saying, sorry to interrupt you, but such
No,
a
no, go ahead.
perfect encapsulation of Doctor Who. It's just a great hour of TV.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I just think it's a perfect. I think it's a perfect like example of like how to build tension in an episode. And this episode was so reminiscent of that in the best
yeah,
way,
yeah,
because it is. So, and something I'm apparently learning about myself. I have a real thing about the uncanny. I didn't realize that this was going to be the case, but like the moment, because yeah, I loved this episode. It's the only episode I've only seen the once, but that does not say anything about how much this is my favorite episode of the three. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
it's very much because I think it is just a brilliant. It is everything about it is so weird. It's that thing of like when you watch something that's just off, and you're just like, I don't like the way this makes my skin feel. It's like
Yeah.
everything in my body feels wrong. Everything is just so strange. It had this moment at the beginning of
Yeah.
it, which I just loved, and it kind of encapsulates their entire relationship in like I think this new sort of like in this like three specials really.
Yeah, that moment in the moment before in the Star Beast where he
Hmm.
says, "I'm really glad you're back, Donna, because it killed me.
It
It
killed
killed me."
me.
That really moved me and touched me. David's so good. I just
So good.
it's always believable, but just those moments they're never too they're just it's perfect.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you're saying about the uncanny with kind of the weird faces in this. It reminded me a lot of I think it's Silence in the Library with some
Yeah.
of the go into I guess the equivalent of like the library data system, and they're
Yes,
backed
the
up.
bit with the Evangelista's face.
Lisa's
Yeah.
yes. I think what really creeped me out was that first, my arms are too long. And
Yeah.
just that, they're like, it's so normal and serious and deadpan. It's just very disturbing.
How long did it take for you to realize that something weird was going on between the two scenes?
Immediately,
Yeah,
immediately.
so like when he came in, I didn't think of anything wrong. But the moment they cut over and had him go into her, I was like, oh no,
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
no, oh no, 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 no.
yeah.
Something's happened here. Like just instantly. I had a friend who he didn't realize what was going on until the my arms are too long bit because she was like, I just thought they were like showing things out of order. Weirdly, I was
Sure.
like, no, 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 no. I knew immediately, and I was like, oh no. And it was yeah, just that thing of like, yeah, my arms are too long, and the standing up, those giant hands fucked me up. I literally was sat there
Yeah.
going, nope, no, 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 nope, 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 nope. I can't. Like, I just like looking at it felt so wrong.
There was so many interesting moments of like that remind me of the thing, but like that was one of them. And like, like that one moment where I'm kind of jumping, but just
No,
obviously we'll
no,
go
please
into
jump. I think we can just jump all over the place.
when the doppelganger of 14 says, "Oh, when you put things there, they stay there. They stay in
Yeah.
the same place. They don't disappear." Like those kind of things of that those creatures understanding and learning and realizing things, like the jaw. It's like, oh, and like how many knees? Is it two?
So,
Two?
like, literally, like my family, because as I said, Doctor Who belongs on a Saturday night. It's just where it lives, and it's as it should be. So we were all having dinner, and I was
Yeah.
sat there with my food on my lap, and I was just going, I don't, my mum found the whole thing hilarious. She would not stop laughing, and I'm sitting there like, this is really fucking me up.
Well, that's cool that it can take or it can give those type of reactions or bring them out of people, I guess, that you can have like, oh, that's really silly, or like, oh, that's really disturbing. And I think there are moments for me of both.
Yeah.
There are moments where like that's like when they're squished together, like the
Yeah,
two creatures.
I
Oh, that's
honestly,
like
when they were like really big and their faces were stretching, because people were like, "Oh, the CGI in this is so bad." I'm like, that makes it worse
yeah,
for
that's
me.
kind of the point.
Honestly, it made the whole thing more uncanny. I
Yeah,
was just like, if it had, I don't know if it had been better, if it would have been like easier to. I think the whole thing, yeah, I don't know how to describe it properly, other than I was literally sitting there like, "Oh, this is just, I can't like everything about me feels wrong."
yeah,
While
yeah.
watching it.
It's just all warped. It's very strange. Yeah. I want to do a shout out really quick to that one moment where 14 pretends to be poisoned
Yeah.
by I don't know what they were called, but they were basically like they're
Whatever the stuff was, the goo.
goo, and he's like, no, I'm fine, and it's just great, seeing David Tennant have show his comedy skills
Yeah.
and on screen. They're such a good duo, the two of them, him and Catherine
I
Tate.
highly recommend watching Catherine Tate's face in any of those scenes where he's doing like weird stuff because her face is like she knows how to react to everything.
Mm.
So when he does that bit where he licks it, she just goes, just like she makes
Yeah.
this face of just like, what is wrong with you? It's just-
I was because I haven't watched a lot of Jodie Whittaker's time.
Mm,
Like you said, I stayed up to date with it, and I was very interested to see if they would keep the Timeless Child uh,
yeah.
uh, canon,
Mm,
and they did, and I thought that was interesting, and I think that was cool. Yeah, I know Russell T Davis said that Chip Noll is a really good friend of mine. I'm
mm,
not going to run over what he did and retcon it,
mm.
and so I think they integrated it really well with this Doctor and the grief and the anger that he shows later on, where he's hitting the wall.
Do you know what? I'm gonna make a bold statement here
Go
because
on
I
then.
know a lot of people were not a fan of the Timeless Child reveal.
Yeah.
I actually liked it at the time. I didn't
Mm.
like how he then like followed it up. I think the idea is very interesting, and I think anybody who likes to go, okay, and this is one of the reasons why I've always enjoyed Russell's writing, is that he's not afraid to look at the thing and go, okay, it's been like this for a really long time. Let's just like I don't know, change up the whole thing and see what happens when we do this. And I thought that the idea of it was very interesting, and that like the consequences of it could be fascinating along the
Yeah.
line. It's just he didn't really do anything with it, and that was the thing that really kind of annoyed me. And I think
Yeah. Okay.
with this, like that scene where he's like talking to Donna, and he's trying to figure out if that it is Donna or not, and she kind of like because I think the big thing for him is like those things are still too big for him to talk about.
Mm-mm.
So having her be like, I already know everything, and like the moment he just wants to believe that somebody's going to understand without him having to explain it all, and he's he just goes like, Donna, I missed you so much, and then she like collapses into a fucking puddle on the floor, and it's like, oh god, and then yes, he has that breakdown, which is just again amazing.
I love how 14 just says, "Okay, good,"
Good.
and just moves
It's like
on.
I
It's
got
like,
that out of my system, and now we got to keep going, and it's like, yeah, no, you did need that. It's like,
so I have a question for you. So,
okay, good.
and when they figure everything out, they figure out it's a bomb. It's in
Mm.
slow, it's slowed down. Did you think that they were gonna kill off Donna, the
I
real
did
Donna?
not. Because I thought that was yeah. Again, it's that kind of meta thing of like I kind of understand how production works better than the average person. I was like, they're not getting rid of her that quickly. She's in the
Oh,
last two episodes. Russell wouldn't kill her like that. Was the other
yeah.
thing. So I knew that they weren't going to do it, but I did love how many people genuinely believed that she
Hmm.
wasn't going to make it, because I think that's the sign of very good storytelling when you kind of like make people doubt plot armor. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Where you see the weakness in the character, and you're like, "Oh, this could happen. There's a potentiality for this."
yeah.
Yeah.
That whole I loved that whole thing with them on the other. Okay, before I go any further, and just, I have to figure out how to put my sentence back together, because I feel like we've been talking about how good David is, and honestly, he's fantastic in this episode. Everything he does with like, he's so creepy. Everything of him being the like not the, that one you mentioned specifically where he's like, oh, and the things like come off you, they keep existing, and I was
Mhm.
like, fuck. It's just like I don't know everything about it, but specifically also Catherine playing evil is so much fun.
She's and with the salt and everything getting down and counting all the bits of
There
salt.
is a feral nature to her that is so interesting in that like version of herself that she's playing.
I love Catherine Tate. I really I mean Dawn is my favorite companion of the old series
Yeah,
and probably still continues to be. Um, just because I think her dynamic with the Doctor is so interesting and so unique that she is the Doctor's best friend.
yeah,
And you really see that often that type of dynamic in TV where or even movies where you have like an alien or like this almost godlike character, right? Because the
right,
Doctor is basically he's like kind of a god in terms of
yeah,
like the but humans able to match the Doctor, and that's brilliant.
yeah.
So yeah.
I because you know what? Because I rewatched a lot of series 4 the other week, and one of the things I watched was Fires of Pompeii, which is the second
Oh
episode in series 4, and it's a really underrated episode because it is such a brilliant example of like why those two work well together and how she's so good at calling him out on his bullshit and how they like contrast each other properly. And like this is who she. It really showcases who she is as a person, where she is like not she will not take any shit, but also she is like so deeply compassionate, and those two things are exactly why he like loves her and why he needs her in his life.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, there's that one where he says just save any. She says just save anyone,
Save
just
anybody.
someone. And then there's that part where the what are they called the oh, see you're gonna be better at this than I am. I think it's the adipose is it adipose
Are we
episode
talking
where
about the one before the
yeah
little
it's
thing for fat? Yeah, the adipose.
then you have the giant arachnid, the queen.
Oh,
Um,
that's oh the
that's
Rachnos.
the
That's the
yes,
Rachnos. That was
arachnid.
her first episode of the Christmas
That's right.
special.
That's the bride, right?
Yes.
Where she realized like it's scary,
Yeah.
and he doesn't know when to stop. And then you get the whole Time Lord victorious because she's gone, and he doesn't have a moral compass anymore, and he's
Yeah.
so rough with grief that he goes off. And so it's interesting to have that dynamic back together and to see how they need each other, I
Yeah,
guess.
especially at this point where he's not so much like he doesn't have that sense of vengefulness, right? Where he's just tired. Like this is the
Yeah.
big thing is like he's just really tired. So and she sees it immediately. She's like, "When do you stop?" It's like you have not stopped this entire time. And she get into it more in the next episode. But she's like, "You really need to like." And I think one of the things that really needs to shout out about Donna is that she knew it was him every time. She was able to figure it out. He didn't. He found it
Yeah.
very difficult, and I think it was because he really wanted to believe in the version of Donna that like kind of knew everything already and all this sorts of stuff, and like just didn't know how to like he for him it's been like several millions of years at this point. Like he has lived for a very long time at this point in his life. For her, it's been 15 years, and she hasn't kind of known who he was for a lot of it.
Right.
So
Right.
like his ability to like he remembers everything, but it's not as like present, I guess, in a very strange way.
I mean,
But
why?
she's also just so smart. I love when they showcase how smart Donna is, despite the fact that she always talks about like she's like, oh no, I'm not smart, and they have that whole thing where she's like the stupid one. I was like, that's no, and like no, that whole thing.
Incredibly
Um,
clever, and I think that kind of bridges nicely into the next episode because I know we only have a couple 15 minutes or so.
yeah,
She she has a great moment where she shows her intellect
mm,
in such a brilliant way where they couldn't have solved what was going on without her,
yeah.
um, putting a pattern together that no one else could see.
And that was
Um,
always her. That's what she was always so good at. That she always had so much experience, and she was like, "No, I'm going to put this together. I'm really good at pattern seeking, that kind of a thing." I do want to shout out one last little bit in that episode
sure.
because I do think the whole thing is brilliant. I think that sense of the uncanny really it worked so well for me. I don't really know how to explain it beyond the just like I just it sat so strangely with me, and the jaw and the arms and everything kind of melting in a very strange way. It felt very reminiscent of Midnight in a lot of ways because it is again about something being copied, an odd thing. But that bit where they're kind of facing off against them in the glass, and he's
Yeah.
like, "We need to stop thinking about things," and he's just like incapable. Just like sitting
Let me
there
think. Let
like
me think.
let me think anything. It's just
Yeah, yeah.
like gonna explode if he doesn't like. But it's also what's amazing about that is like it's very funny. But then if you look back on it after you watch the last episode, it's very indicative of like where he's at the moment. It's like he can't stop. He's just like gears running at about 1,000 miles per hour with steam coming off of them.
If he stops, then it all hits him, and he's trying to
Mhm.
avoid it. And that was
Yeah,
interesting about the old face coming back. Is
yeah.
like it's you're running your body. It's like the old trauma is like returning. It's like you just haven't dealt with anything that's happened,
This
and
face
you
came
just
back because you needed something comforting, and this was comforting to you at a certain point in time. You found somebody who felt more like family than anybody else, and it's like then we'll get into the last episode, I think in a second, but like in that vein, in terms of the last episode, the number of people I saw that were like, "How come Martha doesn't get her own doctor?" I'm just sitting here like, did you not understand the whole point of Martha's arc? She doesn't want her own doctor. She doesn't need him.
that's the thing. Is like yeah, she rejects him in a lot of ways when she's ready, and that's good. Because in a lot of ways, after what happened with Rose, Martha for the Doctor was kind of like a rebound companion.
Yeah,
It was never there, and she was incredibly brilliant and
yeah,
intelligent. And so it was. She's like, "Oh no, I can do better than you. Like I'll find someone who actually values me." And
literally. And it's like the number of people. It's like, no, you don't understand. She doesn't. She shouldn't have one. That's like the opposite of what she should need.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
uh, which to that point, I think we should get into the last episode, which is the giggle. Which it has. There's so much going on in this freaking episode.
I
It
know.
does not like none of these episodes really stop. One of the things I did like about Wild Blue Yonder is that it is very. It is a sort of. I say it's calmer, but like only in that it's like a much more contained episode. It's one corridor that they run up and down and a few rooms that go off at the side of it. Um, as is Doctor Who custom. Um, and yeah, so it's like the moment this episode starts. I mean, yeah, like at the end of the last episode, we got our shot of lovely Wilf.
Oh,
Because yeah,
he says
which
no,
was
he says
so
better.
emotional. Because I believe they shot that, and then I think he died like a month later, something like
Yeah,
that.
he wasn't
It was
able
really close.
as you can
Um,
see in the episode, he wasn't able to return to set because he was
yeah,
too ill. But I'm really glad they had one moment where he says, now everything is okay. Now nothing's wrong in the world. Like that
yeah,
was such a beautiful, just their relationship was so special. And I think there's that moment in a time, part one or part two, I think part
okay.
two, where he said, "I would be honored if you were my father." Where the doctor says it to Wilf, and like I love
That
that
whole
moment.
scene, like I haven't seen any time in a long time because, frankly, too painful. It's like I can't watch Doomsday. You know, it's that thing of like
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
can't do it. It's too much going on here. But like I haven't seen that in a long time. But I do think about him talking to Wolf and him and Wolf going, "Oh, we must look so small to you." And the way that David goes, "I think you look like giants," is like it's in my brain. It is like a core memory for me. I think about it all the time. Um, yeah, that whole thing of I'd be proud if you were my dad. Their whole relationship was so important, especially to him. Um, and it was so yeah, like you said, it was so nice to see that reflected back. Um, even for just that one scene, and I know I got so many people online just like really, really emotional, myself included. I was very impressed with the way that they managed to like kind of keep him there, but also obviously it's not him exactly in at the beginning of the next episode, because the next episode we bring in Neil Patrick Harris as the toy maker.
Oh yes.
In a very fun episode, which plays with a lot of tropes that I'm really into, but that I felt, yeah, like this is, if I were to extend any of the episodes, it would be this one, just a bit longer, because I love that kind of cat and mouse like relationship with an antagonist, where they're like, I'm going to play an actual game with you, and you are going to be so out of your depths, you're probably going to lose, but at the last second we'll figure out a way to kind of like reverse the whole thing, and like, I'm going to get one up on you and all this sort of stuff. It is the kind of bedrock of some of my favorite episodes of anything. The one that comes to mind the most is an episode of The X-Files called Pusher.
Yes, yes.
Which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
my favorite episode of the entire show. It is a genius episode. I just love it when like bad guys play games with you good guys. I think maybe it's something about my brain another way. The fact that I love puzzles and all of these sorts of things. I'm just like, yes, play. This is fun. I didn't feel like he played enough with him. You know.
Yeah, yeah. It was a soft like game in some
Yeah.
way.
I mean, they
Yeah.
were soft games. The only
Nice.
games that they played were they cut cards and then they played catch.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of have the hallway of like it was hide and seek, right? So they talked about that one.
That's true.
That was
That was fun. I did enjoy that whole sequence.
that was really, but yeah, I mean, I feel like we should probably. I really want to talk about the next Doctor at this point too, because
True.
it's looming in the room.
It is looming in the room. But yeah, overall, I mean, I loved this episode as well. I think yeah, like I said, ranking them, I think Wild Blue under Giggle, Star Beast.
Yeah,
If I'm going to put
yeah,
it out there, generally, but like as I said, that's just a like in terms of each other. I really couldn't. It doesn't say anything about the quality of any of them compared to any of them. It's just like a personal preference kind of a vibe. Yeah, I loved everything. I was so prepared. I was sitting there like ready to like be sad again, and then it
yes.
was so joyful.
The bi
By
regeneration was
generation.
brilliant, and I loved how that played into like it's Nishudi Got was the 15th Doctor, who I love as Eric and such.
Immediately, 15 minutes
Brilliant.
of screen time this man has got, and I'm like, I'm going to be insufferable about him. I am so excited.
I can't wait. And what I love is like he's gone in many interviews in the past, and also with this series of interviews because he's been cast as the Doctor,
Mm,
saying that big inspiration for him as an actor growing up was David
David
Tennant. So to
David.
see them together and to see them interact was just beautiful. I love how like there's that explanation because they're in like this kind of like timey-wimey, fun, weird universe breaking
Mm,
toy maker place where they say is like, is that possible? Can you split into two? It's like, well, no, it's just a myth, but because of this energy that's going on, it's like anything's possible, that sense of play. And I love how, like you were saying, before that 14th last words
mm.
was ALLONS-Y,
Yeah,
which means
which means let's go. Which
right.
I was just sitting there going like, oh, Russell, you're so much smarter than me.
Yeah, it wasn't the obvious like I'm ready to go type of thing, but he still said it as that iteration would. And you get the pull apart, and then you have 14 and 15th, and oh gosh, just a game of catch. And I mean, I feel like we could talk about this for an hour, just this last
Yeah,
episode.
I think a couple of highlights for the episode to me are obviously Neil Patrick Harris doing "Spice Up Your Life" in the unit base, which was just amazing. It's very funny watching Neil Patrick Harris in the behind the scenes stuff where he's like, "I'm an American. This song is not something I know," and I'm like, "Yeah, every British person knows this."
Yeah,
It's
they're the Spice Girls. How can you not?
It's Spice Girls. It's like even though Spice Girls were a little bit after my time, technically speaking, I still know a few Spice Girls. Like my like proper little like band. Like I wasn't in particularly into the Spice Girls, but I was big into S Club, S Club 7 a lot as a kid, which was kind of like the next generation on from Spice Girls. It's like a little bit after that sort of a thing. But obviously, I know "Spice Up Your Life." That song was in my head for about 3 days after the episode came out. It is incredibly catchy, and it's that is the encapsulation of that trope for me. Of like, here is a showman, and I'm gonna play it with you, and just something so funny about watching David Tennant have to hold that look of horror on his face as I knew Patrick Harris is just just gallivanting across the entire place.
Spinning people, turning them into balls, and spinning people and hitting them into wall. It was just very very. I think they struck a really good balance of it not being too like it was still a sense of danger and a sense of
There was it
menace.
is yeah, I mean Russell talks about this in the behind the scenes stuff where he's like hard pop is very menacing in a very specific way because he's done it this many times. Like I think one of the really obvious ones was Sound of the Drums, and then the follow up when he does I Can't Decide with the Master. And he's just like dancing around. It's like the beginning of the last episode of series 3. He kind of comes in, Scissor Sisters are playing, and he's just like fucking with people the entire time, and everybody looks miserable whilst he's like, yeah. It's one of my favorites, and it's like that is a great song as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, that whole sequence was brilliant. I did love the whole like corridor bit. Love the use of puppets.
Yeah, I did too. It was very. If you guys have played, anyone's played the Arkham games,
Mm.
the Arkham games. It's very Scarecrow with the
Yes.
overhead shot of the toy maker being so large and being so menacing, and um, it was. I love. It probably wasn't an homage in purpose, but it was just it had that same level of
Yeah.
dread of like this is a force that's beyond anything we've seen really in over 60 years or 60 years. So that was really cool to have that
Yeah.
um, to kind of show what he was capable of before that last
And
game.
another example of the uncanny was that fucking doctor
Yeah,
puppet. Like again, it literally. Like, I'm glad it was only there for a couple of seconds because I was like, look, it's just
that was
immediately.
clever. Oh, that was clever.
It's just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, thank you. I'm good because puppets have never been something that I've been particularly like, oh no, creepy. But like that moment, I was like, no, no, thank
It's
you.
good. Just with
Um,
his unblinking eyes, and yeah,
yeah. And then just Donna beating up a bunch of
that part. I mean, that little doll that walked out was. Oh, I didn't like that. Oh,
incredible. I'm so glad that there's more like emphasis on putting things into like making sure that puppeteers get like that kind of work because
mm,
like puppeteering is an incredible art that should be used more often. Um, and because so many things have been pushed towards more CGI spaces, we don't get as much of that kind of physicality that you get
yeah.
out of puppeteering. And it's just so effective. Also, it's just really funny watching Donna bash a doll against the wall.
No, you know.
Yeah, shout out to Sticky Bill. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. I just love like the
Thank you,
little
Heather.
like babies just like looking like oh gosh. Yeah, I really want to talk before I have to run. I really
Yeah.
want to talk about the how it ends.
Yes,
If
let's
that's
do
okay.
that.
Um,
He
just with
retired.
15. Yeah, we have two TARDISes,
Yep.
and I don't know how you interpreted it, but I interpreted it as because there's that scene with 15 and 14 where he says we're doing rehab out of order. I'm
Yeah.
okay because you sorted yourself out, you fixed yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming what happened with the bi regeneration is that this is just my I mean I've read some Reddits too that I agree with that 15 was pulled back from his timeline into this to be regenerated somehow because he says it's almost like all this stuff is healed in him
That
and
was
so
kind of
eventually
the impression that I got, where it was like, you have
yeah,
to
yeah.
go look after yourself so I can be okay. Right?
Right, and
Like,
so I assume that means that eventually 14 will turn into 15. I don't know if we'll see that, but I think that's the implication. Is
it's
that
hard to
what you
tell because Russell, the way Russell said it, it was that he was like, in that moment, they all split out from each other so they can all exist in the universe at the same time. So they kind of have
Hmm,
an example of like a reason that people can pop up whenever.
yeah,
That was the way he thinks about it. I don't know if that works entirely. Honestly, I don't really care because again,
yeah.
it is that thing of like emotionally, this is the thing that is what you want out of it because it's like we've all done the sad thing. And I think what it does is it lets Shooty go off in so much joy because he got to send off the person that so many of us has adored for so long, in happiness, and then
I
also go be like, I'm gonna go be happy as well now.
Yeah, it was just such a joyful regeneration which you don't typically get,
Mm,
and there was no the sadness was it was so it was there was it was just sweet. There was no bittersweet for me.
it was
I
really
love how
sweet.
like 15's like I'm good, like you do your thing, I love you, bye, and I can't wait to watch what he does. I'm so excited for the 15th Doctor, but then I love how they retired in some ways. Maybe it's retirement for 14,
Yeah, no,
where
it's
he says,
retirement straight up.
yeah, where he says, "I've never been so happy in my life," and that made me cry. Where you have him have his family finally, and just that's what 10 always needed was just people that loved him.
I
And you get
sat after we finished the episode because we got home late, so it was like half 11 when I finished the episode. I genuinely sat for about an hour with that, just like letting it like sit on me, because I didn't cry in the episode, but afterwards I did have like a minute of just like, oh god, he's okay. And like
Yeah.
that catharsis of just being like, I feel like I can let him go now. Whereas it's so much easier to be like, I know that you're alright, so now I can go off with this new doctor in joy and hope and wonderfulness. And also it's such a brilliant like reset, because like
Yeah.
Russell's very much said that this is like a new era of Doctor Who. It's a new thing. We're starting from series 1 now with 15.
New,
New
basically.
exactly, new who. So we get, yeah, Shuji just immediately it came out, was just is so camp, and beautiful and loving, and you get a prize, honey. I'm like,
Yes. Oh, I love that. Where you won the game, you get a prize, and yeah, it was. I cannot wait to see what he does. I cannot wait to see that iteration of the Doctor. I'm
came
so
out,
excited.
he served, and then he left, and he did it all in his pants.
Yeah,
King.
it's true.
Like immediately, king shit. Like, yeah, like I said, I'm gonna be insufferable about him the entire time after he's done, because it is just
What a
such a
terrific actor.
joy.
Yeah,
Um,
truly, truly. So for me, I think, it healed those like 15, 16 in me year old wounds
yeah.
of like and saying I don't want to go and
Mm.
dying alone and as as being regenerated, which I loved Matt Smith after. But for me, this was like just seemed like such a good way of obviously it's still the same doctor, but it's not really 10, it's 14. But it was such a good way of I think healing the fan base with that very
Yeah,
traumatic.
and it also really, because I saw some people try and say that like Ten's leaving overshadowed Shooty coming in, but I don't. I think it did the opposite. I think it's the perfect way to like bring him in joy, instead of
So too.
leaving everybody like so sad about losing David again. We're like,
Yeah.
I can put you away now, and
It,
and and
it
move
was
on.
respectful. Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I'm so
No, no,
sorry.
no,
I
you're
think
good.
it was felt so respectful in that way of because I was worried about that too. I'm like, oh, they're just bringing David back to get rid of him again, and it's going to just cause the same wound, that everyone had, and then they're going to bring him back again for the 70th. It's just going to keep going and going and going. I think what this did was it was so respectful of that iteration of 10, 14, but it also was such a focus on 15 when 15 arrived.
Yeah,
That was like, oh, this is a great way of resolving this,
yeah,
bringing a really good catharsis. If I could talk, I would say bringing a really good catharsis to 14 that wasn't overly difficult. That was just like, oh, he's well, he's going to be okay.
yeah,
And then it allows us to move on, be like, well, let's just go on and see what happens with 15. I think
yeah.
that was like you said, a brilliant way of supporting that new doctor in so many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I could talk about this for fucking ever. I
you
also
could.
want to point out that Thin has said that the music in all 3 episodes was amazing.
Murray Gold.
Lots of lovely motifs that brought back a lot of memories, and he's so very right. I'm so glad that Murray Gold is back. I'm very excited for this Christmas episode, which we only have to wait a couple of weeks to get, which is very nice. So happy about that. And then just before we go, I want to hear what you do. You have like a little ranking? Can you put them together in like in terms of like what
Oh,
your favorite
I, I
was?
think because I do like the more like I like really, really emotional stuff, and like
Mm.
it's definitely had moments that are emotional. But for me, like I love like the kind of like the resolutions of things and like moments that characters share where it's really ultra emotional. So like I personally, it goes for me first would be, um, oh gosh, the giggle,
Mm.
uh, Wild Blue Yonder,
Mm.
and then the Star Beast.
Yeah.
Only because I think you get more into that relationship with Donna and the Doctor, and then you get 15, which is just a joy.
Yeah.
Um, in some ways, I really loved the Star Beast. What they did, it was a little bit too like kid friendly for me
No,
at
and I
times.
think that's fair, because it's one of those things where it's like, well, this one isn't quite made for us as like sort of the older people watching this show. This is for the new people who are coming in. These so kids that was probably their first episode, and I really hope it did the same thing it did for me when I started watching when I saw Christopher Eccleston for the first time, with Billy Piper. That really warms my heart actually to think about, but yeah, I'm so happy that we're getting back to it. Russell said that we're getting into more of a sense of fantasy that we'll be getting in the new series, which is very exciting. I love that idea. And it opens up a whole new like space. And he's already planted a lot of seeds. There are a lot of plot points that are going to come up later, which is very, very exciting. Russell
One
is
who,
the master of the of the
yeah,
what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you know what I mean.
like Chekhov's gun, kind of
Yes,
like a long
that kind of
bow.
thing where he's just sort of like, I'm just put this in here, and that'll pay off in about 5 episodes time.
So much foreshadowing. He's really good at that.
King of the
Absolutely.
foreshadow, that's the word I'm looking for. All right. Well, yeah, amazing. I think that kind of about does it. I would say, like, do you want to rank it out of 10, but I don't even want to do that. I think we should say it was wonderful, and everybody, if you haven't seen them yet and you got to the end of this listening to all of our spoilers, not entirely sure why you do that, but you should go and watch them. And I want to thank you for coming and hanging out with me this evening. Make sure, if you're out there on the internet, you go wish Lily a happy birthday. And a lot of luck for the rest of the performances she's got for the rest of the year, because she's got so many. Truly the most insane schedule I've ever heard for anybody doing theatre. And thank you for everybody. Sorry, Finn is making me laugh again. Thank you for everybody who's watching. Or has watched. Please like, subscribe, do comments, rate us on various podcasting platforms. And yeah, we'll be back next week with, I think we should have everybody next week. We're going to do little, what's the word? Sum up of the year and some of the things that we love. Mm. Oh, and very important, tomorrow on your various podcasting platforms, unfortunately not on video, but like in audio form, we have, Lily did an interview with Naji Jeter, who plays Miles Morales, in Spider-Man games. And that will be up on our podcasting platforms tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm sure I'll let Brian go because he's got to get out of here.
ALLONS-Y.
ALLONS-Y. And watch movies, everybody. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Bye-bye.
Bye.